Hello, fans, viewers, and anyone else who stumbled upon the page. I'm Jamie again, and this is Spencer. I'll introduce him for him today. We're here for another speed round of recaps for Who is the Mole Season 5.
Yeah, I'd like to say real quick, I hope we also have some enemies watching because that would be exciting.
Who's to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the speed round is just that this is a very short round, so at least the plan is that this is probably only going to be like a 20-minute video, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll see how that
Jamie,
works out.
yeah, Jamie and I love to never shut up, so maybe we'll make it longer somehow, but that's not the plan. It just might end that way.
We stand a talkative queen.
Let's see here. So we ended last one with Brian's execution, and which it always happens. This one was a bit later, but there's usually one point in the game where like the big suspect gets eliminated, and we did finally have that with Brian, where I do think Brian is perhaps the most shocking elimination of the game for the contestants.
It's the gag of the season, to be honest.
Yes, the gag, if you will. And this was in particular because Victoria and Shandy in specific were both so convinced that Brian was the mole. If we can recall earlier when we did our mid-game interview with Victoria, she refused to even name another suspect about who it could be. And Shandy, while slightly less sold, was still pretty convinced that it was Brian. And also with like Victoria, she's been going all in on Brian on every single test since the second one, and still just happens to have been skating by just barely because someone is always just a little bit worse than her.
And she would usually sprinkle like an answer or two in another.
Yes, on the occasional test, she would deliberately not hit Brian on one or two questions. But so we did get to see Victoria's reaction to Brian being eliminated, which was just very funny to see. It was a lot of shock. She was like, how did you guys manage to keep a straight face during my interview when I just went on and on about Brian being the mole?
It was the most animated I've seen her all season, honestly. But yeah, so both she and Shandy lost their prime suspects, so they've had to reorient themselves in this round. And it wasn't particularly clear which direction they were going to go to, but I did make a bold prediction at the start of the round that they would both end up landing on Dexter as the mole choice. Yeah, Spencer, how did that prediction pan out?
It was exactly right.
So yeah, so we'll get to the quiz later, but or specifics on the quiz later, but basically we had all three of Jessica, Shandy, and Victoria going on Dexter, and we had just Dexter going for Amanda.
I mean, I will say, let me go to double check this, because I also don't know how intentional it is, but I mean, this is more spreading from Victoria than we've seen.
Yes, Victoria
literally
definitely had the best quiz strategy this episode, this round.
Because she picked 6 statements. 1, 2, 3, 4 she put on Dexter, and then she put 4 of the statements of the 6 that she picked hit Dexter, 3 hit Amanda, and 3 hit Jessica. So
and at least one Amanda that did not hit Dexter, so it shows that there was some clear intentionality there.
Yeah. And then the one that hit Jessica, that was uniquely hit Jessica. Oh, that was also the one that was a guess, though, so maybe that one's a little less specific. But still,
she did a good job of hitting all 3 people that were not herself and Shandy.
Yes. So maybe Victoria might figure it out. I don't know. Especially with, spoilers for later on, Shandy getting the boot, which we'll talk about a bit later.
Very sad.
You don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, so the Victoria reaction to Brian leaving was very funny, and the Shandy one, both of them were very funny. They were even talking to each other like, oh my gosh, we're so shocked. And there was another great moment from Shandy where she had mentioned to Victoria about like, oh, I've been talking to Brian, and like Brian, and I was trying to look through to figure out like who Brian was suspicious of, and Brian was suspicious of everybody except Amanda. And that didn't,
trigger any bells, warning
Yeah.
signs, ideas, thoughts?
It didn't evoke any notion of like, maybe that means Amanda might possibly be the mole. So that was very funny to see. Then there was what was the other thing? Oh, this is just some random observation, because like for later on in the game, especially as we get to like the reunion or the final round of them, like the reunion that we'll host for this, it's going to be a pain because the time zones are all horrible, because at this rate we're going to have one person in South Africa, one person in the UK. We'll have us in Eastern Standard Time, and then it's 50-50 about whether the other person is going to be in Eastern or in Pacific Standard Time. So it's just going to be like
all over the place.
It's going to be disgusting for us to have to coordinate our final live assignment that we're doing.
Yeah. Which will be fun though, because like it's going to be a really cool assignment to be able to do live, I think. But
hopefully we can get that to work out. Yeah, that's in the future.
Problem.
But that was a fun observation. And then the other fun thing that had happened kind of preambly was that we did end up doing like an exit interview with Brian. We just chatted with him for far too long, honestly, about his thoughts and stuff. And one of the things that had come out of that I thought was particularly surprising is that we were under the impression that Brian was close with Shandy and Victoria and knew that they were friends. And that was not the case. To paraphrase Brian, in reference to Victoria, I don't know her. Brian says he never met Victoria and did not know that Victoria and Shandy were like real life best friends. So that makes our pregame predictions where we talk about that look bad in retrospect, but it's fine.
Yeah, there were some wires crossed, I think, in communication there, in terms of games people had played and like how they were connected. But Brian definitely knew Shandy, and Shandy definitely knew Victoria.
I blame Ryan Patterson. It's his fault. He's giving us faulty information.
Yes. But anyway, was that all your preamble stuff or no?
Yeah, I think so. The rest of it is just kind of like the next is just the assignment.
Yeah, so this round's assignment was one of our new assignments. It's very much a collab between Spencer and I in terms of like putting it together, I would say. So we called it Guest Thoughts. And the way that it worked was, if you've been paying attention, you might remember that every round we've had a different special guest who was a prior player on the series. So each one would spend like a round in the chat, and it's really just a way for them to get to know the new cast, to interact with them, give advice to the new cast, because these are all former players, and to try and see if they can spot the mole themselves. Spoiler alert, none of them have as of yet. So, that's fun. But after they leave the chat, so after each execution, the special guest was given a questionnaire to get a sense of their thoughts on the cast. So they were asked things like, who do you think the mole is? Why do you think so? Who do you think will win? Why do you think so? Who was the most shady? What was the best piece of advice that you gave the group? What was your favorite part about being a guest? Least favorite part about being a guest? I think that's almost all of it. I think I'm missing like one, but still. So everyone would fill out that questionnaire, and then Spencer and I, what we did when everyone had been a guest was we took answers from each person, right? And we made that into an assignment. So the way that the assignment functioned was Victoria, as the treasurer this round, which she basically was treasurer because she was the only one who had never been treasurer. It was pretty straightforward this time. Was able to divide the other four rather into two pairs. So it was Dexter and Jessica and Shandy and Amanda. And then she was given a list of 8 statements, which was a question and answer, and then a second list of 8 statements, which was a question and answer. So for example, it could be something like, when asked, who is the mole? Why do you think so? Who said Spencer, because Spencer has sucked at every challenge. That wasn't an answer, but that's a sample of like what she would see. So she had to then take each set of 8 statements, one for each team, and determine how much money she wanted each statement to be worth. So her options were $1,000, $500, $500, $300, $300, $200, $200, and $0. So a maximum of 1,000 for one and zero for another, with those ranges in between. So if you're playing for the team, your goal is going to be to put a statement that seems pretty obvious who might have said it worth $1,000, and to put one that's like could be anyone worth $0. And then she also got to assign which set of 8 went to which pair. Spencer, am I making sense so far how it worked?
I mean, I follow it, but
okay. Well, I'll go.
I also helped write it, so maybe that's not a good mirror to judge it by.
Fair, but that's how it functioned. So I went through all, and this was over video chat, I went through all the statements and answers with her, and then she was able to assign the dollar values to each of them. The funny part there is, despite consistently having been voted as the mole throughout pretty much the entire season up until now, Victoria has been very pro pot. She's genuinely tried very hard to earn money for the pot. Would you agree, Spencer?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's really funny because for the first set of 8, she was really trying to think about is this statement hard or is it easy? If it's hard, I don't want it to be worth much. If it's easy, I want it to be worth a lot. And then she also chose one statement where it was pretty obvious to her, having known Ryan Patterson, that the statement applied to him. So she wanted to make that worth a relatively high dollar amount and then give it to Shandy's team because she knew that Shandy also knew Ryan Patterson from outside of this game and would be very likely to guess him on that. But then about halfway through, she finished the first set. I just asked her really casually, honestly, what's your strategy for this? Because she hadn't really articulated it. And then just in that moment, something clicked in her mind. It was really funny. She was like, I actually was really easy on that round. I was trying to put them with based on how hard I thought they were, but maybe I should actually be a little sneaky with this next set and do the opposite. So that's exactly what she did. So the second set, she put the ones that were worth the most money as being ones that she thought were particularly hard to guess. And that was just really funny coming from Victoria. And then she also decided to give the team, give the set of statements that included the easy one to the team that did not have Shandy on it, which is also just really funny to see. So after that was all divided, Victoria was given a final prediction. So she was able to predict which team, either Shandy and Amanda or Dexter and Jessica, would perform better in the assignment. If she predicted correctly, they would earn a $2,000 bonus for the pot. So she predicted that it would be Dexter and Jessica would do better on the assignment. And Spencer, can you talk a little bit about how they did with it?
They got both the 200s right, Dexter and Jessica. It was very funny because they had finished the whole assignment within less than 3-4 hours of us having given it to them. They got back to us extremely quickly because they were it's gonna be a crapshoot anyway. We could sit here and talk in circles, but it's not we're gonna figure it out suddenly. So we'll just guess. It's fine.
Yeah.
Which I love to see. And they managed to guess 2 correctly, both of them worth $200. So they got $400 for their pair.
And for this assignment, Amanda, as the mole, was given the option of what do you want to know for it? So we didn't immediately go to her hey, here's the answers we asked. Do you want to know the answers ahead of time? So that way that could inform her sabotaging. And that's generally what we do for assignments that function similar to this. Amanda generally wants the team to earn nothing, so she usually does want to know the correct answers. So it's funny because we gave her the correct answers, and then she was able to use that to inform how she was going to interact with Shandy in the assignment. But then we had to go back and tell her that there was a prediction made of which team would earn more money. And if Victoria is right, then $2,000 would be added to the pot extra. So of course she chose to get that information. So she chose to learn which team was predicted to do better. And when that happened, she was so disgusted, it seemed, that the team would have to earn some amount of money because, in the best case scenario, her team beats Dexter and Jessica by a little bit. So that means Victoria's prediction will be wrong and the $2,000 is not added. So she had to go out of her way to make sure that her team earned a little bit of money. So that way the team would not earn the big bonus bump. And that was really funny to see.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts there?
Oh yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. So, and also it was really great because one of their team got 3 answers right, but one of the ones they got right was one of the ones that was the one answer worth nothing. So that was, you love to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they scored $700. Is that right, Spencer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, out of the between the two pairs, they could have earned $6,000 there, plus another 2,000 based on Victoria's prediction. So out of the 8,000 possible dollars for the assignment, the group earned 1,100. So about as successful for the mole as you could hope.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that's very fun about Amanda is we'd kind of like pointed out to her, like, you're probably one of the more aggressive moles we've ever had, maybe the most aggressive one. And she's like, you gave me a job to do and I'm going to do it. And that's just now her mantra is like, I'm here to do a job.
I love that. She has such a great spirit, and I think that she's really enjoyed just screwing people over this season. It's not a role she's been able to play before, so it's just really fun to see her in it. She's crushing it, and just look at the quiz results.
Mm-hmm.
Like
mm-hmm.
how a mole can be as aggressive as she has, but still not be suspected. I think that shows a lot.
Yes, and the group is insane and still suspects Victoria, even though this is like the first time Victoria's actually sabotaged anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I guess now they no longer did. Everyone's gone. Now that the people who suspect Victoria have been eliminated, now Victoria's going to sabotage.
Yeah, that is funny, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But were there any specific answers that we want to point out, Spencer? Because that's it for that assignment. Any of the statements that were funny? Because I know there were a few.
The one that comes to mind was Nancy's statement about who will win, Brian, Amanda, or Ryan, because they really know what they're doing and like they were really putting in a lot of effort. And when I first read that, I was like, is there Ryan? Like, is there someone I forgot in the cast who's just very quiet?
Yes, that was great. Another one that was great was Ryan Patterson, guest Ryan, his statement about who is the most shady in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Which his statement basically about Brian was super funny the way that it was worded, and people got a laugh out of that.
It was like Brian has a way of talking to you that's super condescending or something, but he has these very nice moments.
Lovely and pleasant. Yes, it was great. It was quintessential Ryan. But it was really funny because there were like 3 people who doubled down that the best piece of advice that they gave was about splitting, about hedging your bets basically on people. And the players saw that yet again in this assignment, and I think there was something that might have clicked a little bit with Victoria actually when I was talking to her and when she was going through the statement. She's like, yeah, I'm getting that advice a lot, aren't I? So that could have been something that like propelled like split a little more in her quiz, just to put that out there. But yeah, I think that's it for that assignment.
Yeah, I think so. So that just brings us to the test, which for a short round, this was a surprisingly very exciting test. I mean, I guess the first thing we can talk about is how we made the test meaner than we have been.
Mm-hmm.
So so we're still doing the statements, and this, I'm pretty positive, will be our last just statements. And the next time we're going to do multiple choice and statements together for the final 2 tests.
Mm-hmm.
But for this one, this was the first time that we usually like the statements of like, the mole is like, if it's like, what's the mole's favorite color? The mole's favorite color is green. The mole's favorite color is red. The mole's favorite color is blue. Like, we'll have that whole set of statements all next to each other in a block. So it kind of comes off as still as like multiple choice, even though like you just don't have to answer necessarily every single set, or you can answer more in a set if you want to. But for this one, we scrambled the whole block of questions up. So, it could be like, the mole's favorite color is yellow. The mole is a male. The mole was in pair or answered set 1 or whatever, and like just random ordered of the whole statements. So that makes it much more challenging to keep track of how you're answering the statements. And this was also the first time that we threw in standalone statements that just only hit one person, but there wasn't any like counter statement in like there was nothing else in the set of it to go with it. So like for example, we asked like, or one of the statements was the mole is a male, and there was no the mole is a female. So if you pick that one, it only hits Dexter, and you have no way of like picking an opposite of that one. There's also like the mole's favorite day of the week is Sunday, which only hits Amanda, and there was no other statements about what is the mole's favorite day of the week. So
Yeah, so and this is something, this is not new to this season. This is something we typically do around this point in the game. It does make it harder, and it does throw people through for a loop a bit. And I think that that clearly happened on for some people on this quiz. What do you think?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I like screwing with them a little bit. They, if to get far, we're gonna be mean, but in a nice way. But like we're gonna make meme tests.
So interestingly, can I talk about Dexter?
Sure.
So Dexter actually almost set a record for the series because he would have been the first person ever in all 5 seasons of our game to get a perfect score on any quiz. He did select every statement that applied to Amanda and only the statements that applied to Amanda. So that would have been our first perfect score. Spoiler alert, no one else got even close to that. But Spencer, what happened there that stopped it?
He went way over time. I think he had a time, or his final time was like 13 minutes and 40 seconds ish. Like it was quite a bit over the time limit. And so he incurred 4 penalty points for that, which granted, like, because everyone else is so wrong, it's not going to make a difference.
He's still by far first place on the quiz.
Yeah, because he's doing the very bad strategy of going all in on Amanda. Like, you should not be getting perfect scores on people. I'm sorry, but whatever. And then I know it is interesting. This is kind of a unique problem, but this will probably, we're going to have to revisit this for the planning of the next season, but we'll probably have to tweak the time limit rules just because, you know, even if the tweaked rules I have in mind, I still think Dexter would stay. But just like in theory, it's not necessarily fair that like we have a time limit and someone's able to go over so much and then not really have any consequence from it, or potentially even take that and game it in some way of being like, which I don't know if Dexter times himself. I don't know how far he thinks he is. I don't think he does. But like theoretically be like, oh, I would have gotten a bunch of penalty points and I'm still here, therefore I must be on the right track. So
yeah. What is your thoughts and philosophy on having a time limit in the first place?
I guess that's a good question. I mean, I like it because I don't want people to, because like we exist on this medium. Like if it was in real life, I'm fine without it, because in real life, like you can't go back and check things. You can only ever check your notes. While in this, like if there's something that gets asked that I don't have in my notes, I can just go bring it up. I can scroll through the chats. I can do, you know, for most of the things we ask about, there is a paper trail for. There is some way that you can go physically check it. And at least having the time limit discourages, like it at least imposes a little bit on that to try to limit like people just looking up everything and really relying more so on their notes.
Yeah, I agree. I think this allows it to function more like the TV show. You know, certainly there's no time limit on the TV show, but in the TV show, you can't go back and look up things.
Yeah, you can't go back in time and relive the assignment that like you can over this.
So this limits your ability to do so, at least to some degree. Yeah. So I agree.
We'll need more discussion of it in the future, but it just might be. And it's not even holding this against Dexter, because like he's going to the end anyway. It's not his fault. Yes. But yeah, because like again, I do agree. Like if we were hosting a live game right now or something, I wouldn't say we need to have a time limit, because again, they can only answer the questions based on what they have in their notes. So if someone wants to take 30 minutes to, you know, sit there and really ponder every single question on the quiz so much, then more power to them. But I think on this medium, it behooves us to have a time limit. Exactly. And then what was the other thing besides Dexter from this one? There was, for the people. So as we said, like Victoria seemingly spread. a little bit. So she was able to score a 0 on Amanda, which is actually extremely good in a statements test. And so we had a tie between Jessica and Shandy,
Our
which,
first tie of the season.
yep, exactly. Well, I was shocked. I didn't think we were ever going to get a tie. Maybe at the final four, just because we've structured the final four in a way where there is truly no overlap in any of like the multiple choice or statements. Like if you're two people are going all in on the wrong person, or even all in on the right person, actually do like get the exact same stuff. And like that's more likely at the final four for there to be a tie. I think that I was very shocked that we had a tie this time. And what was even more shocking was that Jessica and Shandy picked the exact same 6 statements. They gave identical tests.
And that stands out because in this quiz, they only had to choose 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there were 8 or 9 that hit each individual person.
Yeah, there were 9. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So yeah. So it's very bizarre to have this kind of phenomenon happen.
Yes, it was the exact same statements. And so the difference for this, where Shandy is losing, is because she took the test 33 seconds slower, I believe. It's just about 30 seconds slower. But that is going to cost Shandy the game. Unfortunately, we were all sad about it.
That's the unfortunate part. I guess the fortunate part is I still think that it's so every person who's left who is not Dexter thinks it's Dexter. So even if she stayed here, I think it is very slim chance of anyone ever beating Dexter because they all think it's him.
Yeah. This is the only thing that might help, because like if we want to get into like making predictions, I might boldly assume that Victoria might. The only thing is Victoria might assume she got in a tie with Shandy, which even if she does, like might make her think that they were both wrong, and then that maybe the mole isn't Dexter, who she put a lot on, because she is so close with Shandy, and she knows that Shandy was going in on Dexter.
And the tricky part is there because she could also assume the inverse, that they were both right.
Yeah, she could be like, everyone in the game knows it's Dexter. We were just right, and I didn't, because she didn't put all of her statements on Dexter, so it could even like function that where she's like, make her double down on the next quiz and be like, I'm gonna go home if I don't make sure I hit every single statement on Dexter.
This game is so hard to predict.
It is, but like this is the one, because Jessica is not swaying from Dexter. Jessica, it's just not going to happen. I would be so surprised. So Shandy going does create the one scenario I can see of maybe somehow Victoria stealing the win from Dexter if she can figure it out in this next round.
And has as good of notes as him.
Yeah, but that is the other thing, though, is that because I don't know Victoria's note-taking situation. She has been so much on Brian the whole time, and as we've learned from a few of our executed players, for some ungodly reason, they only take notes on the person they suspect instead of notes on every single person that is still in the game. So Victoria might only have notes on Brian, and she might not actually have any notes about Amanda. So even if she figures out Amanda is the mole in the next round, come for the final cumulative test, her notes are not going to compare to.
And we point that out because we know that Dexter has extremely elaborate notes. He has talked about it. So so not only does someone have to be in the finals with him, but they have to be right, and they have to have as good of notes as him. And that's just a tall order right now. Is it impossible? No, I've seen stranger things happen in this game. But I think we can safely say the safest prediction is that Dexter will be in the finals.
Yes, if I were a betting man, I would take that bet in a heartbeat.
Will be there with him? I don't know as of yet.
Yeah. It's really hard. My gut is honestly saying that Victoria will be there.
Yeah.
I do think that this might be the end of Jessica this next time, but it's very hard to say.
We'll see. Yeah, we do have 2 fun assignments this next round. So like even if like they're not things that make people change their mind, hopefully it's things that people enjoy.
Yeah.
So that's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's all I have on the quiz.
Yeah, that's. I guess. Oh, there was the one thing we did want to say about Shandy, to eulogize Shandy a bit in the overall thing, and about From the first test to the 8th test, her placements were 4th, 5th, 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 4th, 2nd, and 4th. So she always came her 4th and 5th, except for 2 tests ago. And so I just want to say that we stand a consistent queen.
And Shandy was an amazing person to host. Oh my gosh, she brought the content and the humor all season. I think the season would have like looked different had she not been in the chat the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Because she livened people up very well, so that energy is going to be missed.
Oh yeah, the game's going to be much quieter for the end game of it, for sure, without her there. And I don't mean that in a mean way, Shandy, even though I do tell her all the time that she is extremely talkative. I don't mean that in a mean way.
Yeah. But yeah, on to the final 4 we move.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully the assignments at least run great. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got, Spencer. So do you think we can go ahead and wrap for now?
Yep, I think we're good for this one.
Okay. So again, as always, thank you to our 7 loyal fans or enemies who stumbled upon the page. And we will see you in the next one where we will know who our finalists are going to be.
Be very exciting. Bye.